X-Men, all 6 Cyclops actors ranked from worst to best. The X-Men have provided Marvel Comics fans with plenty of beloved characters, and one of the most famous, and yet underrated, of them is Scott Summers, aka Cyclops. The leader of the X-Men, Scott is a mutant with the ability to produce powerful energy beams from his eyes, aka optic blasts. It means that he must wear red shades at all times when not in his X-Men uniform. And when he does suit up to lead the team into battle, he dons a special visor which can focus and direct those energy blasts at anyone who means them harm. Scott has been involved in many iconic storylines over the years, ranging from his legendary romance with Jean Grey to his feud with Wolverine. He has also been adapted into various other media outside of the comics, too. The most famous of those appearances have come in the form of the live-action Fox movie franchise, and various beloved animated outings too. Speaking of the former, Cyclops is the only X-Men character to, thus far, have 3 actors play the role in a significant capacity. It's also wild that all 3 of them are a part of the same franchise. That being said, who played him the best? Honorable mentions. Before we rank the most famous actors to play Cyclops, let's take a moment to reflect on some of the performers who brought him to life in a minor capacity. Yes, Scott Summers has been adapted more times than you might remember, but not all of those performances came in memorable projects. Even so, these actors contributed a great deal to the character's media legacy, so let's acknowledge them. George DiCenzo and Neil Ross, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Michael Bell, Pride of the X-Men. Carlos Alazraqui, The Superhero Squad Show. Scott Porter, Marvel Anime, X-Men. Toshiyuki Morikawa, Marvel Anime, X-Men and Marvel Disc Wars, The Avengers. Steve Staley, Marvel Disc Wars, The Avengers. Needless to say that all of these actors were an important part in highlighting how great a character Cyclops is, and although they didn't have as much material to work with as the rest of the actors on this list, we're grateful to them for bringing him to life. With that in mind, let's dive into the 6 major adaptations of Scott Summers and find out which version of Cyclops is truly the greatest of them all. Number 6. Tim Pocock. Appeared in X-Men Origins, Wolverine. The biggest surprise in the X-Men movie series for Cyclops fans came in X-Men Origins, Wolverine, in which we were introduced to a young Scott Summers. A high school student taken by Major William Stryker, he was still struggling with his abilities and had yet to become the hero we would know in the future. Tim Pocock delivered an impressive performance as the young hero, offering up what was perhaps the most convincing response to the concussive force caused by the character's optic blasts. Honestly, it's a shame that we didn't get to see more of him in the role, because this was a bit more focused than the franchise's primary Cyclops received, and it was nice to see him have the spotlight, albeit for just a moment. Number 5. Nolan North. Appeared in Wolverine and the X-Men. Nolan North has a ton of memorable performances as legendary comic book characters to his name, including Superboy and Superman on Young Justice, the Penguin in the Batman Arkham video game franchise, and Iron Man in Marvel's Avengers. He also voiced Cyclops in the underrated 2009 animated series Wolverine and the X-Men. North played a supporting role in the show as Wolverine was the main character, an understandable approach here given that Logan's name was in the title, but that didn't prevent him from having a number of shining moments throughout. The episode in which we see Scott's origins is a particular gem, and North delivers with a powerful performance that really captures the anguish Cyclops felt over the discovery that he was a mutant. This ultimately set the stage for him to become an integral part of the X-Men, which led to him accepting who he was. As always, Scott's character journey was compelling, and North's performance enhanced it. The show deserved a longer run, and Cyclops deserved more of a chance to take center stage once in a while. But alas, that has become a running theme with the character. Number 4. Ty Sheridan. Appeared in X-Men, Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, Deadpool 2. When the Fox movie franchise decided to take a trip into the past and explore how the X-Men came to be, we got the chance to see how Scott Summers joined the fray. That came in 2016 outing X-Men, Apocalypse, and Ty Sheridan was the actor ultimately chosen to bring the young Cyclops to life. Sheridan had quite the commanding screen presence right from the off, producing a more serious performance that grounded the character with some unexpected gravity. It was different, but it worked, mostly because Sheridan is a heck of an actor who wasted little time grabbing your attention with his performance qualities we like in a future leader of the X-Men. The setback here was the quality of the movies that he appeared in. Apocalypse had potential but never really lived up to it as a whole, while Dark Phoenix completely squandered it. And through it all, Scott found himself overlooked and forced into the background once again, undercutting the great performance that Sheridan delivered. Number 3. Kirby Morrow appeared in X-Men Evolution. X-Men Evolution took a different approach to the X-Men lore, switching things up from what we were used to seeing on screen. The titular team were teenagers when they became heroes, which quickly allowed the show to set itself apart from other X-Men adaptations, which is pretty ironic as the early comics actually portrayed them as teenagers, too. Youth was a big part of that show, and its voice cast understood the assignment. None more so than the late, great Kirby Morrow who voiced Cyclops. Scott was so effortlessly earnest, charming even, that you could sense those leadership qualities he was known for long before he became the frontman of the X-Men. And whenever he spoke, you wanted to spend more time with him just so that you could get to know him better. Thankfully, X-Men Evolution is a rare example of an X-Men adaptation that actually allowed that to happen, as Cyclops never felt like he was pushed too far into the background of the show. He was an important member of the team, and this is one of the few adaptations that actually treated him as such. Morrow's confident and endearing performance had a lot to do with that, because Scott finally had main character energy. Number 2. James Marsden appeared in X-Men X2, X-Men United, X-Men The Last Stand. If you tried to bring the Cyclops we met in the comics, or even X-Men, the animated series for that matter, into the live-action medium, there is a pretty good chance he would look like James Marsden. With his dashing good looks and assertive charm, Marsden was an inspired choice to play Scott Summers in Fox's X-Men movie franchise, and his journey with the character started pretty well. Marsden did a great job in capturing the essence of Scott right out of the gate, highlighting his role as a respected leader among the X-Men and his passionate relationship with Jean. He truly felt like the personification of the character. The only issue with his time behind that visor was that the movies didn't give him an awful lot to work with. For the most part, Scott was a supporting character in the films, even though he was supposed to be leading the X-Men, and he was very much in Wolverine's shadow. And I mean, I get it, Wolverine is great, but there was more than enough room for Scott to play more of a role. While his relationship with Jean was rather important to the story, he never felt like he was an important part of it, and that's because in these movies he wasn't. His dreadful treatment in the third movie was the most obvious example of that. Marsden was great in the role and occasionally got the chance to shine, but the lack of material did his performance a major disservice. Number 1. Norm Spencer appeared in X-Men, the animated series. When it comes to the definitive version of Cyclops, there is nobody more deserving of that title than the late, great Norm Spencer, who voiced the character on the legendary X-Men, the animated series. He portrayed the character for 5 seasons, so that obviously allowed him to get to know him in a way others could not, but that's only part of what made him so brilliant in the role. Scott Summers is a leader through and through, and Spencer captured that with ease. He voiced Scott with intention, with courage, with passion, with almost every sentence sounded like a confident directive and command. You instantly understood why his fellow X-Men followed him without question, because Spencer's performance was so believable that you wanted to follow Cyclops into battle too. But it wasn't one note either. There was passion in his performance, particularly whenever Scott was conversing with Professor Xavier or sharing a soft, tender moment with Jean. His performance in the 3rd season, which sees Scott struggle with Jean's evolution into the Phoenix, and all the fallout that comes from it, is thoroughly compelling, and it might just be his best. Scott is a confident leader who sometimes makes mistakes and can fall victim to his own hubris. Norm Spencer captured all of that, and so much more, with a performance that felt so inherently Scott Summers that he has become the definitive voice of the character. And I defy anybody to read an X-Men comic and not hear his voice in your head when Cyclops enters the frames. The veteran actor's untimely passing meant that he couldn't reprise his role in the
Row 18, plot 20.